News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth with darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, starting to see a theme today for some of the holidays today.
Oh.
I'd like to wish you all a very happy, I wish I could do this, Escapology Day.
Okay.
It's to commemorate when Harry Houdini did his famous water torture cell escape in Berlin in 1912. But I'd also like to wish a very happy birthday to Stephen King.
Stephen King, what is he, about 150 or
77?
Okay. Don't look at me that way, Allan. Well, he's done some rough living. I mean,
Well, yeah, you're getting run over by a van while you're jogging is that's a little intense.
Like Frida Kahlo and the bus incidents.
Yeah. All right. Well, happy birthday to Mr. King. So anything else?
Well, this is pretty low-hanging fruit for you, Joe, so I didn't want to flatter you. But a happy Batman Day.
Okay, I was waiting for that, Max. I don't know why you didn't lead with that, but it makes sense. So
It's because of that I didn't lead with it.
85 years of Batman. You know, it's interesting, and we're not going to discuss it here on Tool Talk, but folks, in 15 years, Batman will become part of the public domain, and that means I could go out and make a Batman movie and make money on it or something. So the world's going to change a lot.
How old is Batman again?
85. So
Batman's already in the public domain. 72
I thought
years.
they said 19. Okay, whatever. This isn't Geek Tank Radio, but anyway. So there's a lot on the table, folks. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. Especially if you want to tell us how you're celebrating Batman Day. I hope you are out celebrating appropriately. Also, we invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the posts we've made over there. One of the posts, Allan, is for our great moments in building history. Not everything we post is a swinging success. Sometimes there's elements of it that are pretty cool, but then, overall, it's not always as successful. But today we're going to talk about the world's largest curved wooden bridge, the Goat Canyon Trestle Bridge in San Diego County.
I guess it's more about the principle and not the execution.
Yeah, it's more about the bridge itself is a success. The train line was sort of a disaster. It was not a pleasant train ride to ride. It had its issues, Max, but the bridge remains, and it's a pretty interesting piece of architecture. We're gonna talk about that. Allan's week in review. I'm glad we're talking about this. You installed some water lines, and folks, if you haven't put a new water line in a structure recently, I'd say when did these come about? About 10 years ago or so?
I started seeing, I'd say somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago, I started seeing these sneak into the hardware store.
Yeah, so there's a new game in town when it comes to putting in water lines. I got to admit, every time I see them, they're a little disconcerting because I'm like, there's no way this is going to work or hold the pressure, but apparently they do. And
they do it a lot better.
It is
than its predecessors.
It's just like anything new, you gotta get used to it. But so Allan's going to tell us about this new technology with water line pressure. This is going to be interesting, Allan. Later in the show, we're going to talk about alternative building materials for homes because people are starting to have a broader view of what a home can be built of, including dirt.
Well,
I mean, it's not as far-fetched as we might think. I think the biggest change is we have very efficient means for processing these materials, which is what makes it cheaper and more,
Everything old is new again. And it's just
Bingo.
Just your approach. And I'm also going to add, it has a lot to do with the packaging.
There you go. Yep, exactly. So, and also we want to, I got a whole list here, Allan. I'm loath to tease it all, but I also want to just give a quick congratulations to the Tiger football team. We were off last week because the Tigers game preempted us, but boy, what a big victory! They're 3-0. They're surprised. They're
hanging in there pretty good.
They're doing great. So congratulations to the Tiger football team. And on that note, thanks to everybody who stopped by the booth at the Cooper Young Festival last week. That was a lot of fun. Allan, you were in the booth a lot more than I was. I was moving around and helping our volunteers. But what did you hear?
We saw a lot of people.
You gave away a lot of swag. You left with a very small amount of swag.
Oh, yeah. We met a lot of folks. We were right over there next to WMC Channel 5.
Yeah.
And man, so many people came by and said hello. It is just, it was just amazing. We had a constant stream of people.
It was one of those. It was one of those weird weekends too, where somehow the weather cooperated. There was a small window because it rained leading up to it, and it started raining the day after. But there was just this little bit of opening where the weather broke, and somehow the Cooper Young Fest always manages to happen. So we're pretty happy about that. So thank you to everybody that stopped by the booth. We had a lot of fun. But Allan, yesterday, I woke up to, well, I didn't wake up. I was getting ready to head off to work. And all of a sudden, I'm in there in the house, and the power goes out. And I was like, oh, boy, what happened here? Because it was a bright, sunny day. There was no wind. There was no rain. There was no storm activity. And the first thing we always do when the power goes out, we live in East Memphis, by the way. Mm-hmm. Looked out the window. The street lights were out. Because we live near an intersection. The traffic lights were out. Everything was out. And then I got a call from, I had an appointment lined up for somebody about 4 or 5 miles away, and their power was out. Apparently, 10,000 people lost their power yesterday morning, and there was sort of an interesting reason that happened, right, Allan?
Well,
once again.
We have a couple of, I'm going to say, diehard truths in our world.
Yeah.
One of them is water is always the enemy. It is. However
not
we
always.
put it.
Like I said, if you're thirsty and if you're trying to wash something.
But from a construction and building point of view, water must be contained.
Yeah, you don't want water
and
in
fire
your studs and
are
everything
always
else.
your enemies.
Right.
Another one is if a tree limb falls and it doesn't take out a power line in Memphis, Tennessee, did it really fall? It's kind of your joke. And then just in case the power line managed to dodge the tree limb.
Yeah.
And this goes, last weekend, I had to go take a tree limb out of a friend's front door.
Fun.
Because tree broke in half, fell, completely covered the front of the building. You couldn't get in or out the door. Didn't do any damage to the building. And the last one is everybody's favorite little fuzzy rodent.
Yeah.
Those guys get into everything, especially this time of year.
So a squirrel, and I'm nicknaming this squirrel Sparky because I guess Sparky probably went out with a blaze of glory or
yeah, there was a short zzz, and then there was no more squirrel.
How does a squirrel take out 10,000 homes? Now, like I said, I've said this in the past. I'm concerned that our country's enemies might weaponize squirrels, train them, and take down our power grid.
I think they're pretty weaponized all on their own.
Okay.
I just hear Ride of the Valkyries and squirrels coming in on parachutes.
Oh, yeah.
But how does one squirrel take out a power? I think people want to know this, Allan.
Okay, well, then what we really have to consider is how to wire something.
Okay.
So here we go.
You just can't give short answers, can you, Allan?
Well, the short answer is
buckle up.
The short answer is he bit something.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, the real answer is what did you bite and where did you bite it?
And how is a squirrel able to get to this area to bite it is what I'm wondering.
Well, you can't stop them. They can get into pretty much anything. We can put up a fence. A squirrel can clear a fence.
Okay. This isn't an enclosed area. It's an exposed area.
Well, when you look at your transformer stations, and we all have one basically at the beginning of our subdivision or our neighborhood or our street block. Somewhere is an area where electricity comes in, and that electricity that they're pushing to that substation is in the 20,000 to 40,000 volt category.
That's a lot.
And this is to the point where I remember an apartment complex I lived in a million years ago. You could hear the power lines, quote unquote, sing every time it was foggy.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's
moisture hits
so much
the line.
power going through those lines, those big lines, not the line coming to your house,
right?
But the big lines. And that is, they're pushing alternative current, which is constantly pulsing, and they're pushing a lot of voltage.
And that's interesting. And the moisture makes it activate.
The trick is you don't want to complete the circuit. You don't want to short circuit between two lines. And you get a squirrel in just the right place, And he provides that living link between these two lines and, well, goodbye, squirrel.
Well, the good news is for all of the humanitarians out there, this squirrel probably didn't suffer, right? I mean, this would have been about a half a second.
Yeah, he didn't know what happened.
Would there be anything left of the squirrel?
Oh, yeah. They'll be,
Okay.
I will tell you now, there is.
Okay.
But the bad part is you now crossed 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 volts between lines, and down goes the transformer. If that transformer is the one that controls your subdivision, out go the lights.
I have a parting thought. There's in terms of like different squirrels that can be weaponized, apparently there's a very rare squirrel named the vampire squirrel.
There you go. I mean, it's got all the weapons.
He's got the coolest
disposal.
ears, if you ever see a picture of him.
Okay.
And the largest tail.
Oh, yeah.
Well, once again, modern technology is thwarted by Mother
critter.
Nature. So, but anyway, well, Allan, speaking of modern technology, this is going to be interesting. Homes are being built out of all sorts of new materials these days, and we're going to talk about that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
This is what the holidays are all about. Three buddies sitting around chewing gum, huh?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Is that how you're celebrating Batman Day, Max?
Why not?
Okay. Wow. You're really living it up. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us today at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you were affected by the power outage yesterday, because, Allan, what was interesting, it happened in the heat of rush hour. I mean, because I live in an area where we're not very far from a school, so you can see the cars lining up at usually about 7:30, and boy, was it backed up. And
You could also hear it.
Yeah, you could hear. Yeah, apparently somebody heard a really loud explosion.
No, I meant all the horns.
Oh, the horn. Yeah, everybody was a little ticked off.
Well, the explosion was that poor transformer.
Yeah.
So
and Sparky the squirrel. So, but we'd love to know, because it affected everybody. Luckily, I think they had the power on in less than an hour. So good for them. I guess when it's something like that, is it a matter of just flipping the switch back, or do you put a new circuit breaker or something in?
It really depends on the level of damage of if it was just, just like you have breakers, your power supplier, be it MLG&W, Entergy, or whoever your local supplier is, they also have breakers built into the systems.
Okay.
So that in the event something like that happens, being actually originally from Texas, one of the strangest problems we had was very large birds of prey trying to land on power lines.
Yeah.
And back in the 70s, we were making the power lines too small, too close together, and their wingspan could cross between the power lines.
Oh, yeah.
And you would zap the bird and nobody was happy about that. So we figured that out by just moving the lines further apart,
right?
So that you didn't cross. But because critters happen, tree limbs happen. Now, you had an incident a few years ago, right around the corner from your house, where a tree limb wound up trapped on a power transformer.
Right in front of my house, yeah.
And it was sparking, jumping, bouncing, bursting into flames, and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah, what was interesting about that was that happened during one of the ice storms, and basically a tree limb almost shaped like a fork, and so it fell and caught itself on the line, and so it was rocking back and forth, and every time it rocked and touched the line below it, blue flames, fire, everything shot out of it. But what's interesting, Allan, is when I picked up the limb after it fell to the ground, because I saved it as a souvenir. I still have it in my garage. I think I mentioned to you, this thing was burned to a crisp, but it was burned from the inside out, which I found interesting, and there was no smell of burnt wood. Right. I found that fascinating.
Well, it's because it was vaporized.
It was but it really interesting. I mean, it really teaches you a lot about. You've said it before. There's the theory of electricity.
Yes. and
do not mess with electricity.
And periodically, electricity will show you why you don't want to play with it. But when you're talking about the transfer of power from one location to another, they're doing this at very high voltages.
Right.
Which is why letting Mylar balloons go is a bad idea because they're made out of metal.
Oh, there you go.
And they can cross up. And, I can remember 20, 30 years ago, back when doing balloon releases was a big thing, your power companies hated you.
Well, plus the sea turtles and everybody winds up.
Well, yeah, everybody tries to eat them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, so it's really, they're not kidding when they say, if you see a power line down,
right,
call us immediately.
Oh, don't get near it.
Yeah, don't think it's got your house voltage in it.
No. Did you have something, Max?
I was just going to say, imagine like all the problems with regards to like balloon releases for that one major balloon release in that one city. What was it again?
Cleveland.
Michigan? Cleveland, yeah.
That was a big disaster. They released like 1 million balloons, and it turned into a major. It caused all sorts of problems.
Well, they wrap up around the power lines, and they get. Oh my gosh, it's just such a nightmare.
Yeah.
So now I will say this for MLGNW, I have all summer long been seeing the tool that I most want to actually have one day, and that is the giant articulated tree saw arm.
Oh, those are not.
Have you seen this thing? I mean, it is.
It looks like something out of Mad Max.
It does. It does. It's like a 40-foot articulated lifting arm with a huge saw blade on the end of it, and you can tell where it's been.
Oh yeah,
because it is whacking tree limbs off and.
They've been all over town. I see them everywhere. They're trying to get ahead of the winter this year and trim the trees. So good for them. So, but no, I mean, it's always an adventure when you're dealing with electricity. So, all right, Allan, shifting gears. Before the break, we were talking about we were mentioning alternative building materials for homes. So, I do like. It's funny. I probably watch YouTube. I really don't watch much TV, but like in the evening, if I'm going to sit back, I always put YouTube on. And if you look in the right places, there's always something interesting to learn. And I'm seeing all sorts of things. These are no longer theories. They're actually, people are doing this and constructing neighborhoods out of this. They're building out of alternative materials. And we're going to talk about two. One of them is compressed soil, which is basically dirt. It's literally dirt. Dirt homes replacing brick, and then also solid foam houses, and we're talking literally the entire thing made of foam. The studs, the roof. I saw, So let's hit the compressed soil first, Allan, because I think a lot of it is just perception. People are like, "Well, I don't want a house made out of dirt." Well, however, as an outside coating, man, there's some of these oldest structures in America in New Mexico. That's what they're made of on the outside, and they're standing there 800 years later. So
okay, well let's start with our dear buddy Jay Hill.
Talk to me.
Okay, Jay Hill's specialty is a roof.
Yep.
So the first thing we're talking about before we dive into any of this, we have to dive into the incredible improvements we've had in roofing technology and the ability to keep water away from your building.
Right.
All right. The minute you have accomplished that, the actual building itself becomes kind of a who cares. Well, and let me explain that. So once we know where the water is going to be, you got a good gutter system, you got a good roof, and as we have seen with GAF and a lot of these other people, the technologies in roofing have taken quantum leaps in the last 40 years.
Sure.
I mean, we're almost to the point now where the roof is going to be a solar panel.
Well, and it'll look like a roof still.
And it will
it's going
just
to be
look like a roof.
shingles
Right.
that absorb solar power.
Right.
And yeah.
So the technology is incredible. But now we look back in time and we start looking at like rammed earth or Adobe or any of these older techniques, because you go out to New Mexico or Arizona and you run into pueblos,
right,
antique and modern, that are basically made out of mud.
And
for lack of a better
walls,
word, it's mud.
And they're very well insulated. They keep the heat out. They keep the cold out. But the thing is, they were talking about it. Because I was looking that up myself about all the pueblos. They said, well, if you have a damage, if you have a big crack over on that wall there, if you have something, well, you just slap mud in it and you repair it. I mean, how much easier of a home improvement? I could do that.
All right.
That's,
Well, all right.
you know.
Now let's describe what this mud is.
Right.
All right,
Yeah, because it's not just mud, folks. It's
this
not just
is
water
not you
and
went
dirt.
and played in the backyard.
Yeah.
Unless of course you're in the deep south and you've got really good clay soil, in which case you might just go dig up some dirt in the backyard.
Right.
This is refined. This is compressed. Have you ever seen one of those competitions on television where they're making the amazing sandcastles?
I've seen
But
pictures
you've seen
of
the end results,
sandcastles.
right?
Yeah.
The incredible sandcastles. All right, you have no way of making one of those. You can't make one, Joe.
No,
you go
I
to the
don't-
beach, it's not going to happen.
I don't want to. Yeah.
And that is because these guys are using compression blocks. They're taking sand, they're putting it in a compressor, and they are tightening it down so that it will hold its form.
Right.
And that's exactly what's happening with rammed earth. That's why it's called rammed earth. They are making it as dense and thick and compact as possible so it actually holds together as a building material.
Well, they're mixing in a few things. Like they are mixing in like straw and things
Oh,
like
yes.
and certain
They're
adhesives,
binders.
they're binders. So it's not like
Well,
we said, it's not just dirt and water, but
It's not, because you have everything from, if you remember all of your biblical epics on television, mud bricks.
well, I was thinking of the 10 Commandments when he had to stomp the grain into the brick.
They're anything that's a binder. And these days, in the binding department, when we come back, I'm going to add the word crete
Crete.
to almost anything. Because
concrete, that's where
oh my gosh. Well, it's not really concrete anymore. It could be mudcrete, papercrete, bamboo-crete, earthcrete, mycelium-crete. It could. I was at the big box store this weekend, and waterproof boarding for building inside the home has become a gigantic business.
oh yeah.
So
Yep.
welcome to the new world of building. It's not just 2x4s and plywood anymore.
No. And if it couldn't get any weirder, I was watching a video all about solid foam houses too. So
And I want to
and
unpack
structural
that.
foam.
Yes.
Would you walk on a roof that was made of foam? I don't know. I mean, I saw
I've
these guys
walked.
doing it.
All right, Joe, how many roofs have we walked on that we've had no idea what was underneath our feet?
I don't know, man. It's
You get on an old building, you're trusting somebody from 60, 70, 80, or 100 years ago to have done the work right.
It's a weird world, but as we say, everything old is new again. So
And it's amazing.
Yep. So we're going to talk about these. We're going to continue to talk about these alternative building methods, and really just a matter of opening your mind and trying something new that was old before. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Hi there. Is there a project you're working on?
I know more than you.
All right.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
You know, one day Ron Swanson is not going to have an answer that he needs. And he's going to be isolated and alone. And welcome back. I don't know why
he's
he ticks
married.
me off. So anyway, and welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you're out there celebrating Batman Day, which
I was waiting
hope
for you to
are.
say that.
You should be. I mean, it's a pretty big holiday, especially considering this is the 85th anniversary of Batman. And anyway, we're not going to dwell on that because, this is.
Oh, we know you are.
Okay. But we hope you celebrate appropriately. So, hey, Allan, in a minute, we're going to get back to our discussion about alternative building materials for homes, which is really all about looking ahead, embracing the best of the past, but looking ahead to new ideas. You know who else does that very well? Our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. They retain what works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But they are always looking ahead with the latest technology and working that into your plant. When you have your HVAC system, as we've said, is about the most important system in your home. I don't really know anything that is more important. It's regulating every bit of air. We need air. We need it clean, and we need it, the humidity regulated, the temperature regulated. And so it is a very finely calibrated instrument. And so that's why you need a relationship with a really rock solid company, and that's why we always recommend Brown Refrigeration. They are rock solid. They're always dealing with the latest technology and looking ahead to what's coming as well, so you can plan appropriately. Your HVAC system needs regular maintenance too, and a lot of it is very simple preventative maintenance, but you want to have Brown Refrigeration out to your house at least once or twice a year. They can do a checkup on your system, have them clean the ducts, have them look it over. And if you do need a new system, or if you need maintenance on your system, they can identify it now and get it working at its best. They love also the Remy Halo system, which uses the UV power of the sun to create the cleanest air possible for your home. It's, we need to eat healthy and drink healthy and breathe healthy. And Brown Refrigeration helps you do it all. They have a great business culture. They've been around we're getting close to the 50-year anniversary of Brown Refrigeration. And they are as rock solid as you can be, and they answer their phones. We love Brown Refrigeration. You can give them a call at 901-362-1881 or go to brownref.com. So, Allan, before the break, we were talking about people people that aren't on YouTube like I am or something. They might be surprised to know that this isn't theoretical. There are people that are actually building homes right now using these alternative means, and it's usually happening more out west in some of these desert climates where they have these extreme temperature shifts, especially in the desert. You can have a temperature shift of 40 or 50 degrees in one day, from start to finish. But they're using compressed earth. We're calling it. They're using literally foam panels and framing the entire house. They're framing an entire house in 3 or 4 days and saving all sorts of money. And I guess the question becomes, though, Allan, how long do these materials last? Compressed soil, how long would that? I mean, well, we've got structures that they've lasted 800 years and they're still kicking.
Oh, we've got a few structures that lasted a lot longer than that. I'm going to almost start with Larry Brown for a second and say, all right, look at just in the last 20 years, the number of chemical changes that have happened in HVAC.
Okay.
Because, we started out with one, and that was bad for the environment, was putting a hole in the ozone, and don't do this and don't do that. So now, 20, 30 years further down the line, we have yet another new coolant coming out.
Right.
So
starting
this
this year, or starting in 2020, yeah.
Now, you and I have worked on old buildings that have had plaster walls.
Yeah.
They got the little thin wood slatting underneath there. And I've even worked on buildings that had horsehair mixed in.
Yeah.
So welcome building materials of 1905 versus building materials of 2020.
You did say something before the break, though, that caught my attention, because you said if you take care of the outside, the inside, I don't know if you said the inside will take care of itself.
Well, basically, yeah.
Here's the reason I mentioned this is because one of the advantages of a compressed soil building or a foam building is the insulating factor. If you live in Arizona or even if the East Coast or something, you've got to keep it airtight. You've got to keep it well insulated. And these materials naturally insulate. But what's different about these, Allan, is these are insulating your home from the outside. In other words, like what we see in a lot of homes today, the big effort is to insulate in between the studs. And I know we can put things on the outside, but these are full on, starting with the outside protection, and then the inside, like you said, almost takes care of itself. And so the emphasis is on the outside of insulation.
Well, sheetrock is pretty terrible in a wet environment.
Yeah, it's useless. Once it gets wet, it's done.
Okay, so if we're going to admit that water is still the enemy, what you actually build the inside of your home out of, and I've seen cork, I've seen straw bales, I've personally seen cob, which is basically mud and straw and stuff cobbed together. Of one that I have not worked with, but I've seen the plastic crete, where it has a little concrete mixed into it, but it is basically recycled plastics.
Oh, we've heard about that. They take a bunch of bottles and a bunch of whatever.
I've never worked with it, but I've seen it. Now, you're talking about the next evolution on what we used to call insulated concrete forms. You know, we used to go in with the pre-made concrete forms and fill it full of foam in between them.
Right.
And now with the 3D printing, we got to add that into the mix. Now they're able to layer by layer additive manufacturing. They can now just print you a foam and concrete mix house. And the durability on all of these things, and again, it depends on water, but if you keep the water off of it, there's nothing that says these structures won't make it 100 years.
Right. Yeah. And it's getting to the point, too, because I was watching this video about them building a home with, these foam panels. The panels were, I don't know, 6 inches thick. And they're literally gluing. They're using adhesives, and they're using like it's to me, it's going to get to the point where, hey, I'm going to go build a tool shed out back, and I'm just going to get a bunch of foam panels. I'm going to cut it with this saw, glue it together. I'm going to be done.
It's going to take 6 hours.
It's like that's kind of where it's going. I'm not opposed to that. I mean, it's just, I guess I'm wondering, though, with this foam is at some point, everything breaks down.
Yes.
I don't want my foam house to break down in 50 years or so, and then your house is useless. I guess I'm wondering, Allan, what is the lifespan? We know wood can last hundreds of years. We've seen it. So.
Well, and again, it all comes down to environment and moisture control. And a little bit, I'm going to throw in a little bit of pest control because we are better at it these days. But let's say we were looking at a straw house. Now, I personally have never built one, but I do know of them where they have actually used straw bales, again, beaten down and compressed as the interior mountings of the walls.
Right.
Like big straw Lego bricks. And that's another twist that we've added in the last 100 years. We've now added fitted bricks into the mix, much like the Lego Corporation makes toys.
Oh, yeah. Literally, guys, framing a house, just stacking them together.
And clicking them together.
Right.
So you want to make a corner, well, here's your corner pieces. And those houses are proving to be very, very durable. I guess what's going to happen, it won't be you and I, but 50, 60 years from now, somebody's going to be remodeling. Somebody's going to buy one of these houses, and they're going to have to deal with whatever the problem is 50 years from now. For us, it's rotten wood. It's sheetrock that failed. It might be black mold because of a water leak.
Right.
With other new technologies coming along, a lot of our familiar problems might not exist.
Yeah.
We've had drastic improvements. I just got through doing a lot of wiring, and Romex wasn't around 100 years ago.
Yeah.
We have a question on the text line actually from Patrick related to this topic.
Okay.
Or to our topic at hand. They said, is it worth paying for spray foam insulation here? I have cheap contractor blown insulation that doesn't really do anything. I was thinking of insulating my roof in the attic to help keep my upstairs cooler.
Well, it's funny, Patrick. I'm not an authority, but I've been watching a lot of videos, and what I'm learning is it's it's becoming much more cost effective. I think what I see in these videos, Allan, is like if you're up in the attic, instead of laying the insulation just in the ceiling there, I feel like they spray no, actually, I guess you still have to spray that. I think it depends on the structure of your attic, Patrick, but spray insulation is a lot more it's a lot more affordable. However, you don't want to be spraying over if you've got water lines and electrical lines and everything that you're going to maybe have to access one day. I don't know. I think I would use it if it was my house, Patrick. I'd probably use it sparingly. I would find certain areas that you don't really have to touch very much, but I wouldn't just I wouldn't spray the whole attic with that, Allan. What do you think? Because it's gonna stick. That stuff sticks.
Yeah, I'm really of two instincts on that. I just did an attic not too long ago, and it was in traditional fiberglass.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the route we took there, and we can talk more about foam when we come back.
Yeah, and actually, the better thing is to spray it on the outside, and we'll talk about that. But we've got more to get to, including Allan's Week in Review, when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I've got one single nail and another nail to nail it in with. And I'm gonna stop this infernal ice cream machine once and for all.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Talk about lactose intolerant, Max. Jeez. Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
I support his crusade.
Okay, well, you're not big into lactose. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. Like Patrick did. Patrick, I hope you're still listening. You asked about spray-on insulation foam. I think we ought to at least explain real quick, Allan. You've probably seen these cans at the big box store, and I know a lot of people really love it. You spray it on. It is, some people call it expanding foam. It is extremely sticky. It sticks to everything. It grows to like 10 times its size when you spray it in. It expands and it fills all the voids. It's really good for insulation, but Patrick was asking, would you insulate your attic with that? And the more we're talking, Allan, I mean, I would use it sparingly, but you brought up a really good point about this. Well, don't use it everywhere, Patrick, for sure.
Well, there is now a fire-rated spray foam. There's several companies are making it. It's not any one particular company, which I do like. And I do like the fact that, you're
talking about for in between.
I'm talking small use spray foam. Right. I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
All right, what have I run into on the major? We went in and sprayed the whole inside of
like
a
the
building.
Whole wall
Of what I've run into is moisture.
Right.
My problem, and somebody that actually puts in spray foam could probably address this better than I could. However, my experience has been so long as everything is good, everybody's happy. But when you do have a roofing issue or a water leak issue, you really, that sprayed in foam, because it's a permanent affixation, you can't see what's going on. There's nothing getting
there
wet
could be water
on this
between
side
the stud
of it
and that foam, and then
so water, termites, and all of our usual enemies are always at work. You always have to be diligent, and I just find it difficult to work around sprayed-in foam insulation.
Yeah, so I guess keep all that in mind.
That's purely my experience, but that's like I said, the last one I did traditional, good old-fashioned fiberglass.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope that's helpful, Patrick. But, Allan, let's shift gears. We're still sort of on brand, but...
the humanity.
Gosh. Let's learn what Allan did this week, because it sounds like...
If we could still hear anything.
Yeah, no kidding. So... But it sounds like it's in keeping with what we've been talking about today. So,
well, a lot of laminate flooring has gone into the experimental house in Fayette County. Man, it looks good. I will tell you that next week's must-have item of the week is going to be one of my tools for getting in flooring.
Oh yeah, if you have the right tools and the right setup, it's a very efficient,
so fast, so easy. And I've got to tell you, the new modern laminate floorings, they look good, they feel good. When you walk on them, when you're walking on that finished floor, it feels fabulous.
Yeah.
Two, we're wiring that house now, so all of the Romex that has been run and set, we're now putting in the wall sockets. So here we go.
No squirrels on the premises.
No critters loose in the building, except maybe a visiting goat or cat from next door. We do actually have a visiting goat from next door that comes over to look at what we're doing.
Yeah, he's not kidding. I saw the footage.
Yeah, he's real cute, a little bitty guy.
Yeah.
He loves to jump up on the porch. However, when it comes to the original install, the really great thing is I don't have anybody else's shortcomings to deal with.
No, it's a blank canvas.
So I've got plenty of wire. I got plenty of room in the socket box, and I've actually been teaching a few friends of mine that have never done anything like this before how to do it. And the scary thing is I have to give them all mad props because they don't have any bad habits. They're doing exactly what they're told, how I told them to do it, and it is going perfectly.
Yeah.
So, but now that brings us to a new alternative because I have been using PEX.
Yeah.
So what?
These have been creeping up in a lot of. What did you say? These are probably less than 10 years old. It's
well, they showed up in Europe, and I think like the early 70s.
yeah.
And then it jumped over here about 15 years ago. And PEX is cross-linked polyethylene, a.k.a. you're going to look at it and go, oh, I've got plastic water lines now.
Well, I was going to say, so about a year ago, no, 2 years ago, I guess now, I remodeled a bathroom for somebody. And I do the framing, I'll do all the other stuff, but we always hire a floor guy, for the tile and everything, and a glass guy, and then a electrician and a plumber. I don't do any of that. Well, Allan, I had it roughed in. I had all the walls built and everything in position, and I was going to be off that job for about 3 days while the plumbers and everybody did their thing. And this was I came back, and they had that PEX tubing. Maybe this was 3 or 4 years ago. Whatever it was my first encounter with this stuff. And I looked at it, and you could touch it. It's flexible. It's not you're not going to twist it into knots. But I'm like, this looks so. This does not. I would not trust this stuff. It looks so. I don't know. It just looks like little flexible plastic tubing, and I'm thinking of all the water pressure. But actually, that flexibility is part of the beauty of this product. So
Bingo.
I had to open my mind, but when I heard about what it can do, I'm now converted, and I want PEX everywhere. So,
well, yeah, the because of the unique structure of this building, because the one we're working on now is a bit of a homunculus. It's a really old building with some 70s construction, some 80s construction, and a lot of brand new construction, all tying together one single building. And one advantage we did have was that we got to yank out all of the old electrical.
oh,
So
nice.
all of the pre-1980, basically all of the free-range mess, we yanked out.
That's
And
cool.
we yanked out all of the plumbing.
Yep.
So
It started
zero
fresh.
plumbing, started completely fresh, and we went with actual high-end commercial PEX.
So why would people want this, and why are people switching over to this, especially in this part of the country?
Well,
where we get sub-freezing temperatures sometimes. So
well, it's because we don't. All right, well, we're not Chicago. We don't spend 3 months of the year in the subarctic.
5 months.
We spend.
yeah, that's what I remember, Allan. but
Okay,
yeah.
well, I didn't live there.
Yeah.
So we don't spend an extended period of time below a certain temperature. For Memphis, it's a week. Mm-hmm. We got that 1 week where everything gets zapped, and PEX, especially the higher end stuff, can expand dramatically without bursting.
There you go.
So-
It's, a pipe freezes, it fills with ice instead of just busting.
Well, but ice expands.
Yeah.
And ice expansion can honestly topple a house.
Right.
Because, again, I'll pick on Chicago. Sorry, guys, don't mean to pick on you, but you don't have footers put in the ground deep enough. Ice will honestly pick your house up out of the ground.
Yeah, it will. It does it to swimming pools if you
didn't put them in right.
Right.
If you didn't obey the rules. So welcome to this new format. And when you see PEX put in, and you're used to seeing copper lines,
Yeah.
someone like me who's really used to copper, it looks weird.
It takes a while to get used to, but I've grown to trust it now. So.
And now that I'm working with it, all right, wow, is this stuff hard to cut?
Why is that?
It because of how it is made. I mean, I went to set up a quickie bathroom so that there was a place, inside the house for people to use while we're working on it. So I'm installing the toilet, and I'm going through all the usuals, and I reach over, and I'm going to get my little knife, and I'm going to get all this PEX, and no, I'm not.
Oh, well, I'm sure there's a special cutter for it, right? Maybe you didn't have the special cutter.
I did not have the special cutter. I do have the special cutter now.
Okay.
But I was drastic. All right, I got to admit, until I put the toilet in, my opinion of the PEX was Man, I hope this plumber knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And the minute I went to cut this stuff and get that toilet hooked up, my opinion of the PEX technology shifted dramatically.
Right.
Because this stuff is tough, it's durable, it's going to take the temperatures. And once you get used to the installation, this is a brand new building material I'm pretty excited about.
You know what else? It's semi-transparent, so if there's issues, you can see in
You
there
can see what's going on.
What's going on? So, good old PEX. Yeah, we're going to be keeping our eye on it in the future.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Allan, hour one of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but we have a lot of juicy stuff coming up in the second hour when we come back.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And if you're just waking up and just tuning in, I hope you realize that today is Batman Day, the one of the best holidays of the year. Allan looks forward to this every year. Right, Allan? I mean, this is this is more my day than anything else. So, but Batman, anyway, we're not going to get into a big long discussion about that, but Allan, we were talking about, we've been talking about a lot of interesting things, mostly to do with, I would say, newer materials. It's not new tech. It's not new approaches to home improvement. It's more or less, why does it have to be made out of this? Why does tubing have to be made out of copper? Why can't we use this new PEX material? Things like that. Why does the outside of your home why can't it be a mud structure? I think the more we open our minds to new ideas for this stuff, the better we're going to be. We have to embrace new ideas basically when it comes to home improvement and everything. So we've been talking a little bit about that. Allan, in your week in review, though, I did want to circle back on one thing you said. It was about flooring, and you said you put in some laminate flooring this week. And I imagine there's a lot of people out there that have been doing this, doing their own flooring and everything. And you talked about some tool. You said that's good. Well, we don't want to spoil it, but
right, it's going to be next week's there, and this is once again. Now, I'm going to throw in a tribute. I'll even tie it into your Batman Day.
Okay.
Into human imagination.
Okay.
I have discovered, that people have a tendency to have legacy thinking, a.k.a. what was always is how it's going to be. This past week, I helped a friend with their yard because part of the tree had broke off, there were limbs everywhere. We had to get all that cut up and done. But when we got done with that, though, we still had a little time, and I just looked at her and I went, all right, we're redoing some stuff. We're doing it now.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of, when we got done, her yard still had all of the functionality in it that she wanted, but it had half of the effort.
Right.
Translation, quit putting things in your own way.
Right.
Make it easy to take care of. And that tied into a lot of human imagination because we want to do something. And as we've talked about in the past, of what if we have to do something?
Right.
This is where it gets creative. And there is a beautiful facility down in Vicksburg, Mississippi called the McRaven House. And it has a big house and then about a 2,000 square foot house built immediately behind it that's built all out of stone. Because when this was built back in the 1830s and actually starting in the 1700s, you didn't have the kitchen in the house
for safety, right? Well, plus the heat and everything.
Right. Well, you didn't want the kitchen to burn down the house.
Right.
So as a safety feature, the kitchen was at the end of the walkway under a cover, but all of the fire, all of the dangerous stuff was out here where it didn't burn.
Yeah.
And, I'm throwing that in as people are getting fall ready and they're really starting to, every spring we talk about spring cleaning.
Right.
And then I always love to talk about the fall migration to the backyard.
Where we finally want to go outside because it's not 90 degrees outside.
It's not honestly 101.
I don't know about you, Allan, but folks, I'd love it if you have the same experience. We have a day, just like I think last week was the perfect example. We had a day where I want to say it was in the 70s all day, and I did not want to come inside. Like the whole day, I was just like, I wanted to be out the entire time, and it gets that way in the fall. Like you just want to be outside doing things because it's so pleasant after all the, feeling cooped up and everything. So.
It's just amazing. So as we're talking about alternative building materials and that kind of stuff, I'm going to tie that into when you go to the big box store looking for your fall things, I'm going to say expand your mind a little bit, forget a little bit of your legacy, and again, still have an eye for safety. And if you've never done a fire pit, it might be time to do a fire pit.
Yeah.
If you've never done a big grill or something like that, it may be time.
Right.
So my advice to everybody after we just had all this rain here in Memphis, because hello, Francine, never had a hurricane turn left before and then come back to visit us.
Yeah. Well, we needed the rain, and we got, about 5 or 6 days worth. So.
Oh, yeah. My garden could not be happier out there right now.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw in go look at your roof. Go clean up your air conditioner because it's almost time to call our buddy Larry and have him come out and check your heat.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I'm throwing that in early that, guys, all right, it's time now for the next month. Let's get all of these maintenance jobs done while it's gorgeous.
Yeah, exactly.
While you want to be out there. So I'm going to say this segment is devoted to let's get ready for winter.
Okay.
But let's do it now while it's absolutely beautiful and you want to be out there.
Actually, speaking of winter, Max hit it, man. You just made me think of something because let's get to our must-have item of the week, Allan, because you know what? If you have a power outage, you're going to want one of these things.
My gosh.
But if you go to our Facebook page, you're going to see the must-have item of the week that Allan brought in. And full disclosure, Allan, we were using this last week at the Cooper Young Festival, and it was the star of the entire booth.
It was.
This was the heartbeat of the 98.9 The Roar booth, and so tell people what we've got here.
You are holding in your hand an 18-volt to 120-volt power inverter.
It's pretty cool, folks, and I'm sure you know. I mean, most people these days, I'm sure, have battery-powered tools.
Yes.
You pull the battery off, and you clip it into your saw, your drill, whatever. Well, this thing is very simple, Allan. It's small, but it's got USB ports, and it's got a plug, an outlet for you to plug an electrical cord in, a 3-prong cord. And you stick the battery in the bottom.
Yep.
And you've got power for. We were charging our phones. You ran a soundboard off of this last week.
We had a portable radio station. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a portable radio station powered by this.
Yes.
No electric. We weren't running cords through sidewalks and everything to get to our thing. And so this comes in because I have two different kinds of battery powered things too. At the house, I have a chainsaw and a lawnmower that are powered by the 40 volt. 40 volt. Mm-hmm. This is an 18 volt, but this thing, man, you get a lot of juice out of it. You could run a fan off of this for 5 or 6 hours.
I've run an actual interior box fan for 6 hours. Off of a single battery. I
was just thinking about this because maybe you don't have the budget at the moment for a portable home generator.
Right.
But tell you what, this is $50.
Yes.
You get 5 or 6 of these in your house. Now, I don't think you're going to power your refrigerator, but if you get into a situation in the winter and the power goes out for a day or so, this, I'm sure you could run TVs off of this. If you had 5 or 6 batteries in your house, this is a minimal investment, and it's just handy.
Well,
you're going to use it for other things.
It goes along with something you've already bought.
Right.
So it's not like you need to go out and buy an entire system that goes with it. Although I will say, all of the tool companies that make powered tools are all coming out with power inverter packages for this Christmas season.
Oh yeah, these are going to be I could see a lot of people using. I could see college kids. You know who I could see using these is you know how we have these great concerts at like Live at the Garden,
Right.
or we have like the Levitt Shell concerts. Well, if you're out there and it's 85 degrees and you're trying to enjoy a picnic out there, bring one of these with a little portable fan.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
especially the little small USB powered fans.
right.
They use practically no electricity, and they do produce a valuable amount of air. Would run on one of those for literally hours.
Yeah, I just think we've got all sorts of ways of making power more mobile now, but this thing's cool. A power inverter. It's got a flashlight. I didn't even notice that. It's got a flashlight attachment. It's really handy, and like we say, I think these days it's not a bad idea to just have some sort of battery powered, backup like that for quick emergency.
Well, I tell you what I've discovered on job sites is there's always that one thing you need to plug in for just a minute.
Right.
There's some device that you need, or somebody brought a radio or whatever, and you can honestly just clip your regular, XYZ brand power tool battery into it, and off you go.
And if you're one of these people that are hooked on you're on your phone, all day and all night, and you can't go anywhere without your phone, plug this USB into your phone chart. This thing will power your phone all day too.
Easily.
So the portable power inverter, that's what we're talking about. So,
yes.
Okay. The must-have item of the week. So, hey, Allan, this is going to be interesting because in our great moments in building history, we're going to talk about something that here in America, the world's largest curved wooden bridge, it's still standing, the Goat Canyon Trestle Bridge in San Diego. This is Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Well, we're going to do our best. I sure hope so. I mean, there's a lot on our shoulders here, Allan. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I like that one, Max. Good for you. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from DarkOakMedia.com. And our pal Max over there behind the glass.
That sounds like what they said right before the construction of what we're about to discuss.
I hope, yeah. Bingo.
We're all cutting at you.
You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And also remember, you can send pictures. We like texts and we like pictures if they're tasteful. If you're like Deuce out there and you like to horrify us and shock us, then I don't know. We may or may not post those or anything. So. But I've been looking forward to this. This is going to be a very interesting discussion, Allan. So.
And now, great moments in building history.
I hope you guys will permit me, Allan, because this ties into a very personal experience I had growing up. So I think I've mentioned before in the past, if you've listened to Tool Talk, that I used to live in San Diego. In fact, I think San Diego is one of my favorite places in the world. I have great memories. I lived there about 6 years. I'd call San Diego my spiritual home. I just really connected with the place. But I moved when I was 21, Allan. I packed up everything I owned and threw it in my car and headed out and drove to San Diego from Chicago. And it's a very interesting experience when you drive across our country because, you go through. I started with green trees. There's everything, flat. And as you're going and you start going through deserts and mountains and things like that, the thing that I kept thinking about as I was driving, especially when I'm getting into Arizona and heading into California, was I'm like, how did our ancestors do this? They're riding around. I think of the Native American people. All the landscape is rough. It's, there's a lot. Where do you find water? How do you get over all these rocks and everything? And the mountains leading into San Diego, you go up these things, and they're just, it looks like they just stacked rocks 1,000 feet tall. Like at any moment you could have landslides. And this is where they decided to put a railway.
Yep.
And so today we're going to talk about the Goat Canyon Trestle Bridge, which is built in 1933. It was completed in 1933. The railroad was actually built earlier, but this trestle bridge became important because they were putting tunnels in this landscape, and they kept collapsing. And they said, we need to bypass and we need to go around and start making bridges instead of tunnels. But, Allan, this is the world's largest curved wooden bridge. It's curved for a reason. We're going to talk about that. But I have a really basic, fundamental question that I'm embarrassed to ask you on the air, but I'm going to ask you anyway. It's called a trestle bridge.
Yes.
I know what a trestle looks like. I know but what is a trestle, actually? I mean, there's structure involved here, right? A trestle is a type of engineering, right?
Exactly. So,
okay.
So what you're looking at is shared load. Dispersing
forces, right?
Okay, so
is that what you're talking about?
Right. Let's think about your roof.
Okay.
All right. Your roof is designed to hold. Now, how much does roofing material weigh? All right. If you've ever picked up a packet of shingles, and everybody has at some point or another, and has gone,
whoa,
something this small weighs that much. And then you look at your roof and you go, wow, I've got 1,500 square feet of roof, which is roughly, 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of roofing material.
And if you live here, you might have 2 or 3 layers of roofing.
You could have several.
Yeah.
So the roof is designed to distribute that weight and not let it concentrate into any one area. So a trestle is designed to take a massive amount of weight and transfer it throughout the structure.
I got you.
And that way you can get something like, a train, which
is
weighs
shifting weight too.
Well, when you think about any single car of a train weighs thousands and thousands of pounds.
Sure. Yeah.
And just a kind of a fun fact for all you word nerds out there like me, the word trestle sounds so like delicate and sensitive, but it actually comes from like a old French term, trestle, which comes from the Latin term transtrum, which means beam.
Okay, gotcha. So, well, the thing is, because this is a big bridge, it spans, it says 597 to 750 feet. I don't know why they say that. I guess
because the bottom is a lot more narrow than the top.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, and it is over 200 feet tall, and it's going. If you're not looking at our website, our Facebook page, imagine a big dip. It's it goes down and then it goes up. So the lowest part of this trestle, it's 200 feet.
Yes.
That's a long way, especially with wood that can move and it's curved and it's going over a canyon. I mean, when I look at this railroad, you couldn't pay me to ride on this thing. I mean, it looks really treacherous.
And the basic idea of the construction is a box with an X.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so the basic idea here is it can flex just to scare you a little bit because of where this is located, and it is located in, honestly, desert.
People sometimes think, well, the desert is hot. Well, no. Deserts can be freezing cold, and they could be the same. In one day, you could have a 40-degree temperature shift.
You can have a 70-degree temperature shift.
In one day. Yeah.
It can honestly be 80, 90 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and go all the way down to freezing at night.
Yep.
So steel is going to contract and expand too much.
Right.
A steel structure would honestly shake itself apart.
Yeah.
So this particular structure is made out of all redwood.
Yeah.
And if you ever seen a picture of a redwood tree, they're the trees that are the tallest trees in the world.
Like where the Ewoks were living.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's where they shot it, right? So,
it is indeed. It is indeed. So the redwood could take the temperature. It could take the flex. The trestle design was designed to accumulatively handle the load of a train going across it.
Now, here's my question: I always like the idea of exploring the properties of particular materials. Was redwood chosen just because it was the most available and abundant in a close location, or was it because of certain properties that it had versus, like you said, steel? Because steel, we would have been operating with that at the time.
Well, we had plenty of steel, and the Eiffel Tower and stuff had proven steel was a viable material. The reason we went with redwood on this one was density of the wood, very, very thick, heavy, old-growth redwood. So it was a very dense, compact, and very structured wood. B, this was going to be out in the desert. So we really weren't worried too much about insects and rot. And, maintenance of the bridge was there. And because we were using a natural substance, maintenance should be fairly easy because it would be available.
Right.
But, many, many choices went into this. Redwood was not chosen just because we could get it cheap.
And because it was easy to locate because it was only like in California or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was actually chosen because redwood has a lot of antifungal properties, anti-rotting properties. Redwood lasts a good long time, which is why so many things that were made out of redwood 100 years ago are still with us today.
Now, Allan, this canyon is very windy, and I'm sure we've all been in situations like this where you're in between giant buildings or giant land masses that once it creates almost like a wind tunnel. And so this is a curved bridge,
yes.
And I think that's significant because why would the engineers curve the bridge? They didn't have to, but why is that a better idea?
I will give you a proverb that says you can't step on the same piece of water twice.
Heraclitus.
There you go.
You guys have the most obscure knowledge.
But,
okay.
I
majored in philosophy.
Yeah,
all right, let's just face it. If it's not curved to start with, it's going to wind up curved.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, here we go. Walking through downtown Dallas, Texas is one of the best examples of accidentally creating a canyon.
Okay.
Because downtown Dallas has got all of these amazingly large buildings. A gentle breeze coming in off of the Fort Worth side, entering downtown, can become a 70-mile-an-hour wind down in between some of those buildings.
Yeah, it starts compressing it and accelerating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Welcome to Goat Canyon. Goat Canyon is exactly one of these canyons where air at the bottom can come tearing through it at 2 to 3 times the speed of the air at the top of the canyon.
Yeah.
Well, you're looking over 200 feet of air pressure, temperature differential, and, as you said, compression like a garden hose. We're taking all of this mass of air and we're shoving it through a smaller and smaller area. One way to deal with that is to simply accept the universe how it is and make it work with you.
Well, it's funny you say that, accepting the universe as it is, Allan, because I can see people shouting at the radios right now. They're saying, wow, okay, you've got this giant wooden bridge. It's flexible and all that, but also it's flammable. This thing can start. You've got trains going by with big boilers and flames, and you've got wheels with sparks flying off of them. Well, they thought of that, too. They had a giant water tanker.
They did.
There was a guy, his job was to sit in there, and when a train was coming, they soaked it down because exactly that. They don't want it to burn to the ground. But at the same time, Allan, if you're soaking wood down in a desert environment with these extreme, and it's dry, San Diego is bone dry, I guess I wonder what that does to wood, because I feel like, I don't know that helps it. You're getting rid of the oils and you're,
Well, it's not on the wood long enough to make that much of a difference.
So it's evaporating.
It's evaporating quickly.
Okay. There's lots of other interesting things to talk about with the Goat Canyon Trestle Bridge, including, I wonder if there's goats in there. I didn't check. Anyway, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
One of these days, you're going to get yourself killed, you know that, and I will be...
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Ouch. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you've ever ventured out into San Diego County. You got to walk about 8 miles. That's about the closest place you can park. But a lot of hikers and a lot of people enjoy checking out the the abandoned Goat Canyon Trestle Bridge and the abandoned railway line there, and the San Diego, Arizona Eastern Railway. We're going to return to that conversation in just a minute. But before we get to that, we want to talk about our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling, because Jay, we were talking about it earlier, Allan. As you've said, water is the enemy. Not always, but when it comes to keeping it out of your home, it is the enemy, and Jay is the guy you want to call to do that. From roofing to siding to gutters to windows, he works. These are basically systems that all work together harmoniously to protect the outside of your home. We always lean heavily into his roofing expertise because Jay is a GAF Master Elite Installer. He's always 5 stars at the Better Business Bureau. When you look at the rankings of the Mid-South roofers, he's always either right at the top or he's at the pinnacle. He's right there. And these are great reviews. People love Jay Hill because they put it, well, for one thing, he brings a real enthusiasm and energy to every project he's a part of. The guy, we had him come look at a project at our house recently, Allan. I don't know where he gets all his energy from. I don't know if he's well caffeinated, but he wears me out after a while. But he always makes you feel good about the project because he has the expertise and he always points to opportunities. And one thing I don't think we mentioned that enough is there's always we might call somebody with an idea of what we think we need. And when you start talking to an expert, they throw, if they're good, they'll throw ideas that you never thought of, and he does that all the time. And that's the way he has built such a successful business. They put in, as we said with GAF, they put in roofing systems. These are so well designed and engineered that they offer lifetime transferable warranties. And another thing that sets Jay Hill apart is the fact that he's a former insurance agent, which is hugely important, especially with all these storms we just had. If you have some damage to your home that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance, Jay should really be the first person you call, because if you have to make a claim with your homeowner's insurance, it's a very tricky process to navigate. But Jay will help you navigate that process, and if there's a way forward to have that damage covered, or especially a new roof, it's going to save you thousands of dollars. And the consultation is free, and you have all of Jay's expertise at your disposal. We love Jay Hill. We love the business culture he's created. He also has great financing. He has 30 lenders at his disposal. If you need to qualify, you can qualify in minutes and choose the options that work best for you. Jay always encourages you to call him directly, so you can reach Jay at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. Well, Allan, before the break, in our Great Moments in Building History, we're talking about the Goat Canyon Trestle Bridge. Now, this bridge was built in 1933, but we should say that the San Diego and Arizona Eastern Railroad was built in 1907. They called it the impossible rail line because it is. If you've ever been to that landscape, folks, it is treacherous. It doesn't look stable. It literally just looks like giant rocks piled on top of each other. They could shift. This thing's closed at various points throughout history. I mean, I'm looking at a checklist here of times where it's shut down. The other thing they were up against, Allan, is it's all well and good to build a railroad system in 1907 and then build this bridge in 1933. However, when you get into the 50s, well, we're starting to get highways and people are driving cars and you don't necessarily need to risk your life on this this railroad journey anymore. But so there's been a lot of history where this thing is basically just sat there unused, and I have to wonder what that does to a rail line when it's just sitting there not being used or maintained. I mean,
well, when you get out to the desert, I mean, that's just the biggest thing you run into out there is desiccation.
Yeah.
So
you love using that word.
Well, I'm from that area, dude.
Desiccation, yeah.
Yeah, it is, that's when you find a car from the 1950s and it's barely rusted.
Right.
It may have a blown engine, but it's been parked right there on the side of the road for the last 60 years. So,
right.
Welcome to lack of water. See, if you had a building that got abandoned in Chicago, you have so many moisture forces. You got all the cold and the warm working against it. it's going to come apart a lot faster.
Well, we've seen abandoned structures in places like Chicago or even here. And first of all, they get overgrown with plants. The plants start to like I think of these cuds. If you go to Mississippi and you find an old shed or an old farm that's just overrun with kudzu and it's moisture and worms and termites, it's getting. But you don't get that in the desert like this. It's a different and it can be preserved.
It's a very slow process where it dries out. And then you have quote unquote dry rot,
right?
Where it's just so much moisture is removed from it that it begins to fail. But a lot of things like this, because it wasn't made out of steel, there's no steel fatigue. And another thing is, and I don't know if you've mentioned this or not, but this trestle bridge was built without nails.
That's worth mentioning.
It is fitted like a giant Lincoln log set. This is all fitted wood. So you don't really have anything in here metallic to fatigue.
Yeah.
So it's held up better than most.
Right.
So we go back to Max's question about why did they choose redwood? This is why.
Okay. Yeah. So
they could get enough of it, and it was the wood they should have used.
It's interesting too, and but it's cool that it's It's cool that it's still standing. I would definitely be careful if you ever go on this thing. I guess what I'm wondering is, how long do you think this thing could stand? I mean, it's not being used. It's there as more or less a tourist spot. So.
I'll be honest, if they weren't doing restoration and protecting it, it'd be down by now.
Okay, gotcha.
It would have already come down. It would have come down back in the 80s or 90s. Of just because it's a man-made structure, it's still being subjected to the wind.
Right.
And the wind is going to be what ultimately pulls this thing apart.
Well, if you get a chance to go visit the Goat Canyon Trestle Bridge, one of the things that's cool, too, is there's all these abandoned railroad cars.
Oh, yeah.
There's legends of hauntings and all sorts of ghostly stuff. But if you
get lucky, you'll see a bighorn sheep.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, but it is a great structure, I guess, and it is the world. It's surprising to me that it's the world's largest curved wooden bridge. I guess there's a reason, I'm sure there's longer straight wooden bridges. I don't know.
There are now.
Okay.
Yes.
But anyway, so go down that rabbit hole. It's a really interesting one to study, and we highly recommend it. So, hey, Allan, I wanted to shift gears a little bit. I wanted to update everybody on our I don't think I've mentioned this for a couple weeks, but our living room remodel and everything.
Yeah.
And we're really having a lot of fun with I don't know. I'm a big fan, I think, of I mentioned of just looking at things unconventionally. So we needed a TV stand. And I went to big box stores. I went to whatever. I went to one store that can't mention, of course, but it's one of these where you could spend hours in there because there's just so much stuff.
Yes.
I did not like any of the TV stand. We have a very narrow area where this has to fit. And I went around the whole store. I looked at every kind of table, every kind of whatever. And then I'm like, something told me to go look at the bar stools. I don't know why.
Okay.
I went and I found this retro-looking bar stool. Well, for one thing, a bar stool can support 250 pounds. That's what it is.
Easily.
It can support human weight.
Right.
I found this kind of retro-looking one. If you can imagine, it's got a round wooden, seat. And the frame itself was kind of industrial and really cool. And you could spin the seat to raise it. So you could adjust the elevation of this bar stool by a good 10 inches. Okay. I said, you know what? If you took that seat off, I looked underneath it. There was 4 screws that would hold it on. And you put something custom, you suddenly have a pretty funky looking TV stand. Right. So that's what I did. I took it home. It was $100, and it looks, really cool. Took the seat off, got myself a big block of wood, about 25 inches across, put a funky stain on there, put it on, and it's one of the coolest TV stands I've ever seen. So I don't know. It's one of these outside the box, and I doubt anybody else has one.
Well, you Joe, you are inadvertently becoming my poster child for recovery from legacy thinking.
Talk to me.
Well, you spent, how many children did you raise?
4.
So that's a good 25-year investment, 30-year investment.
It seems that
for,
like it
for
keeps
you
going.
and the wife.
Yeah.
Well, these days nobody ever leaves home, but
Yeah.
But you like your kids like you get along, but that's a 30-year investment of get up, get ready, go to school, come home, eat, go to bed.
Right.
I mean, there's not that much variation for 20, 30 years. You and your wife are now getting to explore what it means to have your home.
Well, the thing is, we don't have to make it kid-proof. We don't have to make it. We're not worried about Kool-Aid getting spilled on something anymore. Or, things like that.
Yeah, the words, this is the reason why we don't have nice things, is only applied to you.
Right.
As opposed to a building full of children. So you're getting to explore the wonderful words of what if.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it pretty cool experience, and I enjoy doing that. Just doing things unconventionally. So, speaking of doing things unconventionally, this is neat. I have an ancient tool tale that we're going to share, all about designing domes with a piece of chain.
Cool.
How's that?
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I wonder if they're fraternal or identical tools.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I had to taunt you with that one more time.
Thanks, Max. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. There's just enough time for a nice quick phone call or text at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. You can also send pictures. But if you're on the fence and you're sitting there going, I want to send a message, send it right now. Don't send it 30 seconds before we go off the air. We'll have to address it next week. So Allan, I hope I can adequately describe this on the radio. But as I've said, I really enjoy watching YouTube because for one thing, there's a lot of garbage on there and there's a lot of useless stuff. But if you look up a specific topic, you can almost always find a video for it. And a video, one thing I think we've mentioned in the past was. I've always been fascinated with the idea of like how did people build this 1,000 years ago, or how is it that the Taj Mahal has perfectly square edges and perfectly level walls and perfect with older technology, and we've talked about this in the past of you could actually build a framing square or a level with a cup of water and a straight stick or thing, and we're not going to get into how you can do that, but. When we talk about plumb bobs and simple physics that make complex calculations just by if you pay attention to that. Well, on that basis, I know what a fan you are of arches and domes.
Yes.
The structure of a dome is really fascinating. To me, when you look at dome structures, sometimes you wonder, how did this even, like I think of the Parthenon, all those, how did they even build this? Why didn't it collapse in on of itself? But I learned something in a YouTube video about a very simple calculation of how to make a dome. Mm-hmm. So I hope I can describe this adequately. But let's suppose you've got to make a dome. I don't know. Let's suppose you're going to make a dome 50 feet tall. Right? Let's suppose you have this thing and you're going to design a building. You want to make a dome. Well, if you take a piece of like a chain, like maybe that you wear for a necklace or something, and you stretch that out and you stretch it between points, maybe till it's 1 foot. So that's 1/50th of the chain. All you have to do is you measure it. It gets to 1 foot. Then you measure the distance between where those two chains are touching, like the horizontal surface. I don't know. I hope I'm describing it okay. And that gives you and then you amp that up by 50%. Let's suppose that diameter came to whatever it is, 1.5 feet. You scale that up by 50%. You just did an exact engineering calculation of what that dome needs to be. So in other words, if you want a 50-foot tall dome, you have to have a base of whatever it comes to, 75 feet or whatever it is. But the simple physics and the idea that you could build a dome structure with a piece of chain, or at least calculate that, I love that stuff, man.
Okay. All right,
I knew you'd sink your teeth into this one.
I'll burn your brain here just a little bit. Have you ever seen a manual potter's wheel?
Where you just kick it with your feet?
Yeah,
kinda?
you're pedaling like, like an old-fashioned sewing machine.
Right.
So you're pedaling for all you're worth, and by gearing, you have something in front of you that's turning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how did we make convex surfaces throughout history?
Okay.
How did we get these perfect curves? Well, you put your silt, aka your mud, for whatever ceramic you were making. You put it in the bowl, you put it on there, and if you began spinning it at a certain speed, the material would begin to move to the outside and create a depression in the center.
Oh, it just naturally swells out.
And this is one of those little things that people noticed. So if you wanted to make a shallow bowl, you put a loose silt into your mold, and you began spinning the bejesus out of this thing until you got the depth that you wanted. And I'll apply this, and I'm going to look directly at Max and go, and this particular little calculation is what made the legend of the Archimedes death ray possible. I knew I'd throw a topic in to get Max's attention.
Oh, I remember that conversation.
Well, how did you apply a mirror-like surface to a recessed area? How did you make a bowl? Well, gravity and centrifugal force. And noticing that if you spun it at a certain speed for a certain length of time, it would set just like that. And so I love these TV shows that give us these fantastic reasons why we have certain stuff. I am thoroughly convinced we undersell human ingenuity drastically, because whatever it is you're doing that is so simple today, somebody figured it out.
Right. Well, but you say that, and to me, sometimes you can overthink things. I'm guilty of overthinking a lot, but I'm just imagining the first person that built a dome.
Right.
Well, how did they figure the forces involved and all that? And I have to wonder, did they take a piece of rope or a piece of string, and did they do this calculation, or was it only later that it was like discovered or so?
Well, let's bring up one of my favorite people in the whole world, Buckminster Fuller, who invented the buckyball.
Okay.
All right. If you want to know what a buckyball is, look at Epcot Center.
I haven't been there, so what
don't
is it?
You remember the picture of it? It's the huge wire frame that makes a giant dome.
Oh, that. Yeah.
Because he was convinced that nature wasn't measuring things, but yet a bubble could float a perfectly a sphere, half a sphere could float on the water. How did nature make that bubble?
There you go.
There is now, how did we get the idea for a pyramid?
Right.
Well, if you've ever lived in the desert and you lived in San Diego, you ever had a storm come blowing in and have that little hole of sunlight coming through it?
Sure.
It makes a perfect pyramid, doesn't it?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And that's how people looked at these things and went, So I am a huge, huge fan of mankind's imagination and our ability to notice something.
I'm looking at his work. It looks pretty much like some sort of like dystopian, like geodesic dome.
It is a geodesic dome.
Yeah.
It's where it came from, my friend. That's why we affectionately call it a buckyball.
And Allan, I think it's fair to say, I know I've used similar principles like this on a job site. When I'm stuck, I've made a plumb bob out of a rock and a piece of string.
Absolutely.
I've done, whatever. And when you're, and like you say, necessity is the mother of invention. So when you're really stuck, there's all sorts, if you just pay attention to nature, you're going to get an idea to solve the problem. So, but the dome design was fascinating. I didn't know about that.
Well,
so.
the idea that you could just take a string and just lift it all the way from one side to the other and then scale it up to what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking the amazing results you can get from such a simple idea.
Yeah. So don't overcomplicate things sometimes.
Sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer.
Absolutely. All right. Sometimes we don't, we run out of time before we get to our stuff, but I have some things to talk about, and I know you do too.
Of
so
course.
what is going on with Dark Oak Media this week, I'm sure?
Well, of course, spooky season is upon us, and Haunted History Tours has shows on our site. So darkoakmedia.com, or you can look up Dark Oak Media on YouTube. And we are just all over New Orleans with vampires and ghosts and haunted bars and all kinds of cool stuff. And, of course, Tool Talk, Geek Tank, and The Food Dude the podcasts are prominently featured.
Yeah, you should listen on Thursday mornings, folks, when Allan brings in food. It's always a surprise because you never know. You know, I'll tell you this. Ditch is very honest about his opinions about your cooking.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And
it's not about your cooking. It's usually more about whether he likes a certain texture or he
It's usually about cheese.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeff Brightwell, has he ever not finished it? He'll eat anything.
You know, I've only disappointed Jeff once, and I knew it was weird because I was cooking something Victorian.
Thursday mornings, right before they go off the air.
Yep,
listen to
right
the food
at
news,
8:50.
All right, I got to mention this, Allan, because we are 2 months out, so I'm going to be mentioning this sporadically. But the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention is coming up November 23rd and 24th at the University of Memphis Holiday Inn. Plans are going great. You know, I don't know if I told you this. We sold out our vendor booths by May. That's how popular our convention is. So that's a pretty big thing. And we're really excited about our guest of honor. His name is Brandon Potter. And if you watch the if you watch the web series The Chosen, you'll know him because he plays Quintus, who's like one of the best villains of all time. He's a really cool guy, but he's also an anime voice actor. He does video games. He's a really cool guy, and he's going to be our guest of honor. And you could meet him when you come to the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention. So get your tickets now. We keep them very affordable so you can bring your family. It's a pretty family-friendly convention anyway. Lots of things to do. It's a lot of fun. Go to our website, memphiscfc.com, and get information there. But we hope we'll see you November 23rd and 24th. Well, Allan, the show has evaporated again right before our ears. It's time to get out of here. So on behalf of my buddy, Allan Gilbreth, and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.